one of the most unique yet often misunderstood sounds in the entire history of music, there's never mistaking anything else for industrial music. Pulling from a wide range of sources including punk, metal, musica concrete, drone, and many other early electronic forms, the name and the sound industrial music actually goes back into the 1970s. However, industrial music is rather different from any other style of music in the fact that most of the pioneers of the sound cite a large number of writers and great thinkers as the primary influences on their music, as opposed to most other styles where they simply talk about other musicians who came earlier. From Nietzsche to Voltaire to the Marquis de Sade to Foucault, there are a great number of literary giants and masters of thought who can be found in the building blocks of the industrial sound. On the music side of things though, there are scores of early tape manipulators that played an absolutely vital role in the development of industrial music. But you can also hear elements in everyone from The Doors to Captain Beefheart to John Coltrane to Tim Buckley in the early industrial sound. Yet the importance of industrial records as a label cannot be overlooked, as the early work of the band Throbbing Gristle is perhaps the most accurate point one can cite as the beginning of the modern industrial sound, as that's where you have actual industrial instruments and machinery being used to make the music. Lyrically, there's rarely any singing in its more common form, and in most cases, whether back then or in modern times, the vocals are extremely sporadic if present at all anywhere. When there are lyrics present, they're usually some sort of commentary on society and its pitfalls, and they usually involve totalitarianism or some other extreme symbolism. It's due to these themes that the early movement became very quickly associated with anti-God organizations, and was also completely alienated from almost any radio presence. It's because from the beginning it had that more aggressive, more confrontational sound and approach, and because of this, it often accompanied visual art of very much the same nature. This is where bands like Suicide and other groups from the no-wave movement become heavily linked to the industrial sound, and you also have to include the early work from Kraftwerk as absolutely vital to the progression of the genre. From all of these influences, you lead to bands like SPK, Sleep Chamber, and Clock DVA, and these are the clearest examples of the more modern sense of industrial music, but of course you also have the true masters of the industrial sound in the form of the band Eichsünde Neubauten. These European artists had this aggressive, fierce bite to their music that remains unrivaled to this day, and through these bands, connections to the world of hardcore and heavy metal were inevitable, and that's where you see the links to bands like Swans and Skinny Puppy. The overall dark and disturbing nature within the music and the lyrics gave the industrial sound a duality like we'd never heard before in music. As while the lyrics were challenging the systems and cultural norms, the music itself went against nearly every rule possible. This completely raw, uncensored artistic process awakened a brand new group of composers and musicians, and yet the music's connections to various forms of extremism often gave the genre an unwelcome name, when at the end of the day, most of the artists involved didn't agree with those movements. As the 1980s progressed, the industrial sound splintered off into a massive number of subgenres, and bands like Nine Inch Nails and Ministry were finally able to bring the industrial sound to the masses, making it as an acceptable musical approach as it would ever be. Over the past decade, the dominance of computer-based music just can't be ignored, and even within the worlds of hip-hop and pop music, you can find strong traces and clear links to the industrial sound, and you can easily make the argument that regardless of what comes later in music, there will never be another sound as confrontational or misunderstood as industrial music.